is Emily Iannielli, and I am a male to female transgender woman, and I have been going through some rough patches at times as I transition from male to female. I have my good days and I have my bad days. I know struggling with gender dysphoria, it's very common to have bouts with depression and feelings that you're not always up to par, and that things sometimes seem to be overwhelming and you want to take on the world, but you can only do so much. I've been dealing with gender dysphoria. I didn't know it at the time, but I've been having gender struggles since the age of 3. So I know what it's like to feel different and out of place. And it took me a long time to address my inner struggle and my feelings. And I actually never thought that I would ever transition, to be honest with you. It was something that evolved over time, but it wasn't something that was formally planned, though I had tried many times before to no avail. So I know what it's like to feel different. I know what it's like to struggle emotionally. I know when you feel out of place and that you don't fit in. I know what it's like to hold on to a secret and not share it with others. And I know what it's like to be transgender, of course. I also know what it's like to be married and to have a son. And I know what it's like to go to college. And I know what it's like to have a family and to be caring of your family. And I know what it's like to have friends. I also know what it's like to get caught up in life and emotions, and I would say that I'm quite sensitive and a very feminine person, and I believe that my transition was meant to be. I was born a boy, but in my heart I've always felt like a girl, and I knew that's the way I should live my life. The hardest part for me in transitioning was how it would affect my son. I didn't think that it was going to be something that I was ready to do. He was just a young teenager, and I knew that it would be difficult, but at the same time I also knew that it was something that I had to do. I had no choice. You get caught up in your life and with feelings and trying to fit in and to do the right things, and sometimes you just don't know, and life is very much a challenge, an adventure, and you try to ride in all of the opportunities in your life and cherish each one. I lost friends over the years who were very young, and it is sad. And I also know what it's like to struggle with severe depression and thoughts of suicide and, having struggles with your gender doesn't make things easier. In fact, it makes life very complicated, and you try your best to get through and to live as normal a life as you can. I've been blessed to meet wonderful people along the way in my life. I have people that don't really understand what it's like what I'm going through personally, but most are very understanding and supportive. Not everyone though, but most. And then I have my friends in support group that know exactly what I'm going through because they are going through the same thing. So we have a common bond, and I think it's important that you develop meaningful friendships and relationships with people from all walks of life, including the transgender community. I think when I was first transitioning, I really didn't know anything about, who to reach out to or even how to go about transitioning. It was all a guessing game for me, and I basically learned on the internet through YouTube, through websites, and just working at it, trying to find resources available that were out there. I found a good website, crossdressers.com, where I learned about calamari, and I also learned about the GLBT transgender support group that have meetings in Bayshore and now Woodbury, and I learned about many male to female transgender individuals and their stories on YouTube, which I find a very helpful source for learning and gaining insight. I have a heart, and I try to do the right things, and I have a wife, and I need to know boundaries. There was a meeting in my transgender support group that was very emotional last week, where a transgender couple were discussing trying to find arrangements for kids, two kids, teens who are transgender. One is male to female and the other is female to male, and they're a couple. They're actually dating each other. The male to female is 17, and the female to male is 19, and essentially they're homeless. They were staying with this couple, and they were treated like family to the couple, but unfortunately their landlord made an ultimatum that they had to leave, otherwise the transgender couple would be evicted. So they had no choice. So I volunteered to take them in, temporarily, trying to help them. And I tried to do what I thought was the right thing to support them and help them. But unfortunately, my wife was not open to the idea, and I have to respect her wishes, but I was very affected emotionally because I was trying to help these poor kids, and I don't know where they'll wind up. They do have a support system, they have friends, so they're reaching out to other friends that possibly they can stay with. If it was up to me, I would have them stay until they got situated, but unfortunately, that's not the case. I have to respect my wife's feelings also, but I had good intentions, and this has been affecting me in my own mental outlook. I've been extremely depressed about it. I feel very overwhelmed, and I feel sad that I can't help. And, you know, I know people say that you need to help yourself before you can help other people. And I also have a son who's autistic, and I know what it's like to be a parent, and these kids are young, like my son's age, so I look at them as if they're just like children to me also. And we have a common bond because we're transgender. I'm a male to female transgender, and they are female to male and male to female. So we have a bond, and I adore them. They're wonderful kids. So I've been struggling with this, and I've been struggling with my own severe depression, and I've had thoughts of suicide, and wanting to end my own pain, and sometimes I wonder if I'm strong enough to go on, and I really feel so depressed at times that I just feel lost and hopeless. It's hard for me because I'm not working. I'm on medical disability. I've been on disability for 2 years now. I'm on Social Security disability and long-term disability. And when I was working, I was presenting as female in my last job, which was something that was very fulfilling for me. However, I had a very bad experience, and it landed me in the hospital. I had a nervous breakdown, and ever since that time spent in the hospital, I've had many hospitalizations, and for various reasons, but it's all related to my depression, my gender dysphoria, and my financial worries. And for those reasons that I've been in the hospital, I'm finding it hard now to get the consent for gender reassignment surgery from my psychiatrist and my therapist, which is also bringing me down, making me extremely depressed, because I really want to have the surgery. I need to feel complete as a woman, and I feel that the surgery would definitely be necessary in my situation, but my hands are tied, and I need to continue with my psychiatrist therapist, and I'm not going to find a new therapist overnight who's going to write me a letter. It doesn't happen that way. I would have to see them, they'd have to get to know me, and it's like starting all over again. So I have to be patient and hope that my doctors will come to understand my situation and my need for surgery. But, you know, I've been going through a lot, It's hard when you struggle, especially if you have a gender identity disorder. Uh, and I have a son who I love. He's autistic, and I think the hardest thing for me personally when I decided to transition was how it was going to impact on my son. I was very worried for him, and I wanted him to know that I still love him very much, and that I'm his dad, and I always will be, despite the fact that I'm transitioning from male to female. Uh, it's not an easy transition, uh, but I'm happy that I decided to transition. It was either that or suicide, to be quite honest with you. And I'd rather live and be happy as a woman than to be dead and buried underground. Uh, I feel I still have some life to live, and I may as well be happy living it as a woman. Uh, there were times I felt guilty about deciding to transition, and I wasn't sure if I was doing the right thing, and I was concerned how it would affect my son and my family. But I struggled so long in my life, and I was so depressed, and I felt that I really had no choice. Like I said, it was either transition or die, and where would that leave my son? So ultimately I felt transitioning was the right thing to do, and that's when I decided that I was going to be proactive. I had several failed attempts at transitioning earlier in my life, and they went nowhere. So I knew I'm getting older, so I certainly wanted to make sure that I was serious about what I was doing, and I felt that the first thing to do in my transition was to seek a therapist, and the next step was to go on hormone replacement therapy, and then the next thing was to do electrolysis, and then start doing a lot of soul searching and making sure that I was taking every step forward and doing it the right way, and also being sensitive to the needs of my family, especially my son. And the dressing part was easy because I've been doing it all my life, but now I was doing it in public view. Before I was doing it underneath male attire, so it felt much better when I started presenting. And in the beginning, it wasn't easy. In fact, I had a lot of resistance. I had come out in my initial stages of transitioning to my previous employer, and it wasn't a good start. They weren't accepting of it, and I was not sure if I was going to have a job with them, but then they had a change of heart, but I was kind of forced out by the CPA firm that placed me there where I used to work, as they were a client of theirs, and they persuaded that I take a job with a medical doctor's office, pediatrician, who was expanding at different locations, and they convinced me to interview with them, and they were open-minded to my transitioning. So I decided I would go on the interview, but I wasn't comfortable. But I did regardless. And after interviewing, I asked them if it was possible if I could transition on the job. And they said that it would be fine. And I got an email the next day saying that they were happy and excited that I would start. And they gave me a date. And I was happy. And I thought, this would be a great opportunity for me. Plus I would be able to transition on the job. So I was very excited. And, the practice manager was very helpful to me. She was very encouraging. And from day one, she addressed me as a female. She called me Emily. So I was very pleased. She gave me a very good reception. They had sensitivity training with their employees, so they embraced me. But the owner was the one who had the final say, and for some reason he wasn't pleased with me being in the controllership position as a transgender woman. And subsequently, after 7 months there, I was terminated, and that led to my severe depression, and I had a nervous breakdown, wound up in the hospital for almost 2 weeks. And that's when I started to go down, and when I was released from the hospital Bellevue in Manhattan, I was set up with a psychiatrist and a therapist at Beth Israel Hospital in Manhattan, where I still go. And I find that I need to continue going. It's also a requirement based on my need for disability. But I've been having my ups and downs, and I've been in the hospital many, many times. A lot of times was the result of third-party callers concerned about my welfare. I've been going through so much, and I've been very contemplative and extremely depressed. That all goes hand in hand with gender dysphoria and being transgender and having financial difficulties. Life isn't always a picnic, and especially if you're a transgender woman transitioning, you're going to encounter a lot of obstacles along the way. And basically, I'm striving to be happy, and I want to be loved and accepted for who I am. And I miss working. I miss being a part of the society in a way. Right now I basically live at home, and I don't have much contact outside other than going to my doctor appointments or occasionally the mall. And I sometimes go to a movie or I get something to eat, but I'm pretty lonely. I don't miss working per se, but I miss being able to make a living and supporting my family. I feel like sometimes I'm a drain on the system because of the disability, I've been diagnosed also with bipolar disorder. I'm also struggling with gender dysphoria, and I'm raising a son who's autistic, and I miss my son because he goes away to a residential school upstate about 6 hours away by car, and it wears on me. I miss him so much, and I think about him constantly. He's the best thing in my life, and I don't know where I would be without my son. Um, and I think that life is a struggle at times, but it's also a beautiful thing, and we should be appreciative of all the wonderful things we have in our life. And obviously my son is one of the best gifts that I could ever imagine and hope for. And I think that it's important that in my situation, being that I'm transitioning, that I still maintain a loving bond with my son. And we have a tremendous relationship. And my son respects me and is very empathetic and sympathetic to my situation. And, I'm just doing what I feel is necessary for my own happiness. And, I would never do anything to hurt anyone, especially my wife or my son or my family. But I'm doing what I feel I need to do. It's been a long struggle for me. I knew deep down in my heart that I was a girl since age 3, when I was a little boy, trying desperately to wear a dress from my sister's closet and hiding under the covers with a big smile on my face, knowing that I was being a girl, just like I always felt inside. And I cross-dressed all my life, basically. I had times where I tried to quit, and I purged my clothes, and then I went to college, and I had difficult times dressing up, because I was very devoted to my studies. But I knew in my heart that I would have to face my gender struggle at some point and decide where I wanted to go with it. And I knew at age 12 that I was transsexual. I knew right away, after reading a lot of stories of other male to female transsexuals. I knew it instinctively, but it scared me, and I tried to deny it. And when I did cross-dress, I tried to rationalize that all I was a cross-dresser, but in reality I knew it was far deeper than that. But I couldn't explain it to anybody. I was afraid, and I kept it bottled up inside. I never told my family, I never told my parents. I told my sisters many years later, in my mid-30s, through a letter, and I told my best friend from college days, also the same way, through a letter, and it all transpired at the same time. So only 3 people I came out to in a letter, but it went